And now, your questions answered. You are listening to MultimediaJay Radio.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to MultimediaJay Radio, where we will be answering your questions today. And once again, I ask, who's we? I'm just here with a microphone, for Pete's sake, talking about stuff. Anyways, so I was asking earlier about some Q&A stuff, and after getting a pitiful amount of questions there, I came up with the rather bright idea of looking through my inbox for messages for, when people post comments on YouTube and stuff like that. It occurred to me, maybe if I tortured Mozilla Thunderbird and searched for YouTube-related correspondence with question marks in it, maybe I could get some more questions that way. So I have about 20 questions now, so let's play a nice little game of 20 questions, or sort of. And these questions are either questions folks ask directly, questions that folks implied because they made a statement without putting it in the form of a question, and some other things as well. So we got 20 questions to go through here. Your questions answered here on MultimediaJay Radio. But first, let's crank up some snazzy background music from the YouTube audio library. Ah, there we go. That's more like it. All right, let's get started with our questions here. Question number 1. What are your thoughts on the newest bunch of consoles? Well, I could actually probably do more than a few audio commentaries in the form of console rundown videos for various consoles, including the ones that everybody's making a big hullabaloo about right now. But to make a long story short, in general, I think that this latest generation of gaming consoles is not going to stem the tide of the changes that are going to completely change the world of gaming as we know it. What we call console gaming today hasn't been console gaming in the classic sense of the term in many, many years as far as I'm concerned. Console gaming has been becoming more and more like PC gaming pretty much since the original Xbox. Although if you ask a real old-timer like myself, I personally believe that classic console gaming started to die the minute memory cards came out for consoles. It used to be that you just have your game box and your games, and you just plop in the game, and that would be it. It'd be that simple. But once games went to optical discs, and then we started having to deal with memory cards and stuff, the complexity started to add up. Then along came the original Xbox with its built-in hard drive, and Xbox Live, and basically console gaming has been becoming more and more like PC gaming for quite some time. Fast forward to today, the latest Xbox and the latest PlayStation are online, they have hard drives, even the Wii U has flash memory and stuff, and basically console gaming today is pretty much a stripped down version of PC gaming. In some cases it's actually worse than PC gaming though, like with the fees for Xbox Live, and now there's going to be fees for the PlayStation's PSN, PlayStation Network as well, which I'm not a fan of, which is why I don't have a favorite console this go-around. You could say that I like the Wii U the most, but the thing with the Wii U is that the only real reason I even want to get a Wii U is not because of any great, wonderful games on the Wii U, except the new Super Mario 3D Land, whatever that game was that came out, that Rich from Review Tech USA has been oohing and ahhing about. But the big reason why I'd want to get a Wii U is to upscale Wii games. The biggest thing that caused problems for me with actually playing through my Wii games last go-around was the Wii only did standard def, which made playing games on the Wii quite an eyesore. I mean, here I am with a gaming PC that's more than capable of doing 1080p on medium settings for a lot of PC games, even as a 3-year-old system. And then I go to play a Wii game and it's standard def. Yeah, bit of an eyesore there. Plus my Wii's been having some problems with damage to the graphics chip causing artifacts on the screen. There was a known issue with my generation of Wii's where this would happen. And mine, of course, was one of them. So it doesn't artifact all the time, but I'm eventually going to end up using my Wii as a GameCube player. I really think the hardware manufacturer to keep an eye on this go-around, though, is Valve. And what kind of things Gabe Newell and his buddies have up their... what kind of ideas they have up their sleeve in terms of getting Steam into the living room. Because that's really the kicker right there. if Gabe Newell is as entrepreneurial and aggressive about this as I think he's going to be in terms of trying to be the barbarians banging against the gate of the console's fortress called the living room, in terms of PC gaming entering the living room, yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how that all pans out. I maintain to this day that consoles only sell for two reasons: their price and their simplicity. So if a console is either too expensive or too complicated, it's pretty much guaranteed to be a flop. And as far as other gaming platforms are concerned, that's their disadvantage. Like PC gaming, building an awesome gaming PC is still going to cost a ton of money. Yeah, it's basically the way you can basically pay 90s PC prices to build a top-of-the-line gaming PC these days if you want to get a high-end Core i7 and stuff. Now, you don't have to get a PC like that, but unfortunately, that's the way things are these days. That's the one way in which the bad old days' PC prices have stuck around. So the new round of consoles, I really think that the new round of consoles isn't really going to stem the tide. I think gaming as we know it is going to radically change within a generation or two tops, especially as the tablets and mobile devices start picking up some serious gaming horsepower. And console gaming has been getting more and more like PC gaming for years, and this generation is yet another step towards that. And on the other end, PC gaming has become more and more simple enough that various PCs can be sort of used as consoles. Of course, it has its hurdles too. I'm really hoping that the Steam OS that Valve is working on, I really hope the Steam OS has some kind of way of getting around the issues with multiple controllers when PC gaming. That would be a big hurdle to overcome in terms of the PC entering the living room. But I really think gaming is going to become more of a blended together thing, and this console versus PC gaming thing that we see nowadays is probably not going to exist in another 2 years, because another 1 or 2 generations, because the two are going to assimilate each other, and gaming's just going to be gaming. It's just a matter of what you want to play your games on. And right now, the traditional consoles aren't exactly very interesting to me, because why should I pay service fees for basic internet services when I can already get that with my ISP fee on PC? So there's a lot of really difficult questions that both console manufacturers and PC and gaming PC manufacturers need to answer. But once those questions get answered, we'll definitely see gaming blend together more than it ever has before, although some fanboys are going to be pretty mad about that, because their ability to raise a big stink on the internet is going to come to an end when that happens. Question number 2, what video editor do you use? Corel Video Studio. I've never really gotten too big into the high-end video editing software type stuff like Sony Vegas or Avid or something like that. I actually first started using ULEAD Video Studio, which Corel is basically ULEAD. ULEAD Video Studio I actually got bundled with a video card that I purchased in college, used it for one college project, then checked up on the state of the software in 2006 when I was first getting going on YouTube, liked it, and have been using it. I don't really use very fancy features of video editing, except for maybe blue screening once in a blue moon. So I don't really have much of a use for something like Sony Vegas or something like that. And ULEAD/Corel has really evolved quite a bit over the years, so I think for the time being, in terms of keeping things inexpensive, I'll probably stick with Corel for the time being. At the same time, though, ULEAD/Corel, they keep making this software more robust to really kind of give Sony Vegas a run for it. But I don't think that anybody's going to take Corel as seriously as they would take something like Sony Vegas anytime soon. But they can at least try. So yeah, Corel Video Studio, nothing too exciting. But then again, I don't really use very many fancy features of Corel anyways. So I'd have to max out the features on Corel before I thought of moving up to something bigger. Question number 3, what is the future of the Dellasaurus? I don't know, beats me. I probably should have junked that thing a long time ago. I'm getting feedback either to find a way to use it as a network appliance or just torture the thing with various Linux distros until the thing cooks and smokes and stuff. Try overclocking it or something along those lines. Yeah, like I can really overclock an ancient, old and tired Celeron like that and get any real decent results out of it. Maybe with liquid nitrogen, I don't know. So, I'm not really too big on the future. I don't really think too much about the future of the Dellasaurus. Every so often, I think about just trying to mess with an operating system on it, but I can't think of any use for this thing. It's just a horrible old dinosaur. It probably would be more useful as a doorstop than an actual computer at this point. I've already had multiple people chime in and say, yeah, you're right, dude. My smartphone has more processing power than that piece of junk does. So, future of the Dellasaurus. The future is uncertain. Eventually I'll get rid of it, though. I just don't know when or how. Question number 4, in response to my discussion on YouTube getting rid of the subscriber system. If YouTube ditched the subscriber system, what would you propose that they use to notify subscribers when a new video is uploaded? I don't think YouTube should get rid of the subscriber interface, but just the proprietary system that's not standardized. If they integrated more RSS type support, where you could either use a built-in RSS thing on the site or put it into your feed reader or something and use something like Miro or something like that, with it either listed as a podcast or a source, it would be a lot more standardized, and it'd be nice if that became a standard for other video sites, and so people could just aggregate everything into their feed reader where they already have their regular podcast subscriptions and their blogs and stuff like that. It's really about standardization more than getting rid of the subscriber system, but one thing is for certain, no matter what way that YouTube would implement more standardized RSS support, the current proprietary subscriber system is a royal joke. It probably causes more harm than good as far as YouTube is concerned. Causes YouTube to bark up the wrong tree, gives haters some ammo to flame people and things like that, causes problems between various YouTubers. It might have been a good idea back in 2005 when the site first launched, but all these years later, nope. Definitely needs to be replaced. Next question. Did the Dellasaurus come with Windows ME? I believe I said that in one of the videos about the Dellasaurus. Yes, it is the one and only Windows ME machine that I have ever had the privilege of working with. Back when my dad first got it and he was running Windows ME, I got to use AOL on it during the semester breaks. And that's also one of the reasons why the RAM is so crappy. It was so crappy in that thing, only 64 megs, whereas a Windows 2000 machine would have come with, say, at least 128 in order to get decent performance. Low-end computers back then had a bit of a problem with over-reliance on virtual memory. So the manufacturers would cheap out on RAM and put a decent-sized hard drive in there and be like, oh, you can just use virtual memory instead. And if I had a nickel for every single low-end computer that I saw back in college where it would be slow and the hard drive light would never, ever turn off from when you started it up to when you shut it down. Oh man, don't even get me going on that. Even my alma mater got burned with some of that stuff, with some of their Pentium 2 machines. They upgraded them to Windows 2000 without upgrading the RAM, or someone had the bright idea of upgrading those machines to Windows 2000 without upgrading the RAM off of Windows NT4. But even with some of the NT4 machines had drive lights that were constantly on. Oh, what a disaster. Yeah, the Dellasaurus was a Windows ME machine, and I'm not happy about that. My dad couldn't stand it either. He was glad to get rid of that piece of junk and move up to a real OS in the form of 2000 XP. Heck, I even think he liked Vista better than Windows ME. Question number 6. What's with the Nerd Watch? Oh yeah, the Casio Nerd Watch that I wear with the built-in calculator buttons. And actually, if you look at the promo material for the Back to the Future movies, I think Marty McFly has an 80s version of one of these too, but they still make them. And the reason why I wear them is not because I'm horrible at mental math, I'm more than capable of doing arithmetic in my head. It's just that a lot of the warehousey type stuff that I do might require like on-the-fly cycle counts or something like that, where you have to get it exactly correct. You don't want the numbers to be wrong and throw off the inventory. So even though I'm more than capable of doing all kinds of math in my head, I just use the calculator just to make it stupid proof unless I fat finger something. So yeah, and it does earn me some nerd points. People are like, hey, what's that, a little computer for you to use when you're in the bathroom or something? Like, no, it's just a calculator watch. They're like, oh yeah, nerd. Anyways, There have been times when I've had to do some surprise counting type stuff for IC folks in the warehouses around here, and this thing has come in handy. I also use it when I'm in retail stores to do some number crunching on the spot, like to find out if sale prices are worth it or not. I have seen some boneheaded retailers around here put something on sale, and that item, when you crunch the numbers versus the unit price and what you're getting and stuff like that, the sale price of an item is actually worse than the regular price of an item right next to it. So it does come in handy for looking for some on-the-fly number crunching and things like that. Question number 7. Why even bother with MP3 format for digitizing your CDs when there's plenty of lossless formats out there? Now, I answered this in the comments when it was asked, but if people don't want to nerd out on the comments and read them like there's some kind of novel, the big reason why I go with MP3 is because of significant digits. Audio is basically one of those things where there's a threshold where any improvement after that is going to be purely mathematical, unless you have a specially designed listening room and high-end audio equipment. One of the problems with audio versus video is that most of the time when people listen to audio, it's on suboptimal equipment, like little earbuds in your MP3 player, car speakers when you're in your car, and even if you have good car speakers, you're closer to one than the other. You're not sitting dead center in the middle of the listening area when you're listening in your car and stuff like that. Of course, if you have a radio going in the house while you're doing chores and stuff like that, yeah, that's one of the problems because, well, we have two eyes that focus on a specific point, but our two ears basically are on the sides of our heads, so the whole positioning thing really becomes an issue, and you really need... And if you get too finicky, what you're going to end up with is files that are way too big for results that you're not going to get to experience unless you build a dedicated listening room or something like that. Now, as far as MP3 formats go, I got my start back in the days when 96 to 128K per second was considered high quality. Today's 320K format is way better than that. I mean, it's great to not hear the underwater drums and stuff that I used to hear back in the day with those horrible encoders way back when folks were first introducing me to MP3s. When they were playing Winamp, classic 1990s Winamp, and they were like, what were they? Let's just say, I went to a technical high school and I was in the electronics shop, and I've seen so many ad hoc speaker setups. There was even one guy, he stuffed a subwoofer inside a cardboard tube that you'd buy, some kind of like building material or something like that. He's like, hey, check out my bass tube. He puts duct tape over it or something. The thing flaps and rattles when the woofer goes off, and he thinks that's bass. Yeah. We had a computer repair shop right next door to the electronics shop back in my high school days, and we ticked off those people with our bass more than enough times. So, yeah, I'm not a snob about sound quality because most of the time I have suboptimal equipment going. So, my Klipsch system with the Klipsch satellites and the subwoofer and the home theater box, that might actually put out some decent sound. But the rest of the time with headphones and others with headphones or earbuds or car speakers, not so much. So I'm not really a snob about it. Plus, digitizing CDs is an absolute breeze with my newest setup right now. So if I ever wanted to upgrade the format, not that I want to anytime soon, if I ever wanted to upgrade the format, it's fine. But the whole thing with having 30 megabyte songs doesn't appeal to me at all. I'll just match what Google Play has for the time being, which is 320K. And have a blast with it. Plus, I've still got all those CDs if I ever want to redo this again. And it's not like they're going to get scratched anytime soon when I'm only playing them like once every 2-3 years or something. Question number 8. In your video about how Microsoft could fix Windows 8, were you talking about Microsoft fixing the OS in general, or fixing it so it would run better on the Dellasaurus you were trying to cram it onto? The video is called How I Think Microsoft Could Fix Windows 8. The Dellasaurus is mentioned nowhere in that title, so obviously I was just talking about general improvements to Windows 8. I think Microsoft would be completely off their rocker to try and make Windows 8 so that it would work on an ancient Celeron from the turn of the millennium. Question answered. Next. Number 9. In Honeywell, I'm Home, what was the hidden TV reference? I Love Lucy? No. The whole Honey, I'm Home thing is a little bit more 90s than I Love Lucy, or close to the 90s, I should say. Dinosaurs, the old sitcom with the live action dinosaur, whatever it was. I don't know if they were puppets or guys in suits, but the old dinosaur shows from the 90s that always begin with Earl waddling in through the door and going, "Honey, I'm home." Then again, I think there was some kind of stuff like that in shows earlier too. Like I think that happened on the Flintstones, and then Dino would come jump all over Fry and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was dinosaurs, but I'm sure that show in the 90s wasn't the only show that had that sort of thing going on. By the way, for fans of the show, not the mama! Anyways, question number 10. 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second for video, yay or nay? Personally, I really think that television and movies being at like 24 to 30 a second is really just us holding on to old technology for old time's sake. I mean, yeah, sure, as an artistic decision to make film look more filmy, we can add extra film grain and stuff like that to give it that film look. It's an artistic choice, but I often wonder, how we have the technology for it, why not have television shows and movies 60 frames per second if the person making it wants to make a 60 frame per second movie? It would look like a video game gone wrong, but well, we do have the technology for it. The big problem I run into is my camera records 30 frames per second, but the 1080 is actually technically 1080i. So there's still some interlacing going on with the footage. And it looks kind of weird. It looks 60 frames per second when I'm editing it in Corel, but the footage going in and the footage that comes out is at 30. But I would be open to 60 frame per second television and movies, even though it would look like a video game gone wrong. But hey, artistic expression, leave the door open, even if it's very, very unorthodox in the world of professional video. Question number 11. Can you please knock it off with the Flickervision when working with the Dellasaurus and its lovely CRT monitor? In a word, no. That's part of the charm. You know, those of you people who haven't had the lovely experience of using a computer with a CRT monitor all the time from back in the day, you guys get to play a little bit of catch up when I bust out the CRT. Actually, the problem is that Samsung tube monitor that I use with the Dellasaurus works perfectly, and it's 10 years old. I originally got it in the summer of almost 10 years old, I should say. I originally got, 2014 does start next week, later this week, so, I originally got that Samsung tube monitor in 2004 when the monitor that got me through college went out with a bang, quite literally, and a couple of sparks, too. I think the flyback transformer blew on it or something. I was just using the computer one day, boom! Big light show, sparks fly up to the ceiling, and the monitor is dead, and I end up having to get a Samsung. The Samsung still works perfectly to this day, and I really would feel bad if I just got rid of it, because there's nothing wrong with it. So I want to use that thing till it breaks, and whenever the heck that finally happens, hopefully not with sparks and flames and stuff, but whenever that finally happens, then I'll finally get some kind of flat screen for it. But until then, I mean, we're dealing with really old computers here, so flickery CRT monitors pretty much come with the turf. That's part of the charm. Question number 12. What loser made Tuxedo's case? Yes, my main machine's case design is quite long in the tooth. It's actually a little antiquated these days. There have been no less than 3 different case manufacturers that have used this design, and the case that I use for Tuxedo is actually a case that I originally saw on some of the very first Alienware PCs back in the early 2000s when I first learned about Alienware, and I saw these huge alien green systems using this case design that had all this high-end hardware in them and stuff like that were made for gaming and stuff. But the basically the case that I use is the same case design that I've been using since the original Silver Bullet that I built back when I was in college. And it's been upgraded a few times over the years, but the design's kind of been passed along, if you know what I mean. I originally saw this case design on Alienware PCs. When I built the Silver Bullet back in college, Chief Tech made that silver case with that design, and the Tuxedo is a Chen Ming case. And I've recently seen Apivia, if I hope I'm pronouncing these names right here, I recently seen Apivia making a version of this case, but it has since been discontinued. It's still around. You just have to dig for it on Amazon or something. It's more of like an entry-level server case or something than your typical mid-tower or something like that, but it's still around if you dig for it. But it's not that bad of a case design. It's got plenty of airflow. And the one that I picked up was made with the Intel tax specifications in mind for processors that give off excessive amounts of heat, so I've been able to bolt a 140mm fan onto the side grill for some direct 140mm fan intakes into the thing, which unfortunately has made the thing into a real dust sucker, so I keep having to blow the thing out every couple of weeks. So maybe I'll get a different case or put some filters in it or something, but this case design, as ugly and as antiquated as it is, has actually served me quite well for the last 10 years. And even for nostalgia's sake, I still have my old Silver Bullet case around, but I definitely don't want to use that anytime soon because it only has 80mm fans. The version I have now and the versions that are out on the market nowadays do run with 120. I'm thinking next go-around, though, the next time I build a completely new system, including a new case, I will probably go with a different case design because I've pretty much gotten over the whole door on the front of the case type thing with these big PC cases. I originally went with cases with doors to muffle the noise from CD-ROM drives. It sounded like jets taking off, but Lite-On and the other manufacturers have done a far better job of making optical drives far less whiny. Nowadays, it's more like, it sounds like a fan spinning up more than a jet taking off or something like that. But when I was in college, man, playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City. Oh, by the way, gaming publishers are responsible for this too, for these improvements with the decrease in the use of the CD when a game is playing versus what used to be the case back in the day. I remember when I was in college playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City, every so often I'd go to get out of the car in the game and the CD drive would spin up for about 15 seconds and freeze the game while it sounded like a jet was taking off, and it really kind of wrecked my gaming experience. So, the design's a little antiquated, but it works. And that's the big thing I'm running into these days with case designs that I absolutely can't stand. What is it with all of these LAN party-inspired cases that look like it's an artifact from a spaceship or something? I mean, not to be like all corporate workstation or anything, but all I need is a metal case. I don't need fancy lights going all over the place. Plus, I mean, light shows may be nice for like parties and impressing your friends, but I would never build a light-up system without the ability to turn that off, because if you leave the computer running when you're trying to get sleep at night, the blue light that's emitted by LEDs of various types actually damages your ability to get restful sleep. So it'd be good to turn off the light show. But I've never really been big on building machines that look like that, though. Not even with Windows. Not even with windows in the side. Even though my original Silver Bullet case had a side window, the only reason why I wound up getting that case was because the version of the Silver Bullet's case that didn't have the window was sold out on Newegg at the time. So I decided, I'll get a window anyways, and my nerd friends who built their own systems loved it. So what loser made Tuxedo's case? About no less than 4 different companies over the last 10 years, but the design's still out there, and it's still more than usable. Although some manufacturers like Antec and some of the other case designers out there have improved on this, so it's very unlikely that I'll end up using this case design again next time I build a computer. Question number 13. It's a shame that your friend in college built a PC with 60mm exhaust fans. Could you at least use that PC as a hairdryer? Now we're going way back, because I believe I mentioned this in a video quite a ways back. Yeah, I did have a nerd friend in college who was a big-time PC builder. He watched me build my first machine, and he really liked how I built mine. I got a feeling that I made him a little jealous because he got burned big time trying to build a new system during the Summer of the Geek when we were in college, employed on campus during that summer because we were nerds in IT and all that lovely stuff. So my friend actually, yes, he did get burned with, he had an ATX full tower case with like 6 or 7 drives. The kind of thing that you'd build a big server with 2 power supplies in and all that lovely stuff. It was a little excessive to say the least, and he had a water cooling system installed. So you can imagine, great big case and a huge radiator bolted to either the back or the top. I mean, it's, yeah, massive overkill for a desktop PC. And he knew it. I'll bet if I refriended this guy on Facebook for the first time in years, we aren't really all that great of friends in college, but I'll bet I could, if I ever friended this guy on Facebook or something like that, I could probably maybe convince him to dig up an old picture of the monster computer he had back then with the water cooling and everything, and he even used Ziploc containers to store the extra water. So it was a very hack job water cooling setup. Yeah, memories. But he decided that he wanted to get rid of all that and just have a regular air-cooled mid-tower. Unfortunately, the case he picked only had 60mm exhaust fans. Yuck. Loud and whiny. This is back when 80mm exhaust fans were the so-called quiet fans. Nowadays, you got systems where the power supply or the motherboard can control the fan speed based on the temperatures on the CPU and stuff. Machines, and of course you have the 120 and up sized fans these days. Machines are a lot quieter than they used to be back in those days. But yeah, I felt sorry for the guy because he prided himself on how he built his computers in college. And he actually was even a little snotty towards me when I made some of the decisions I made when building my first system. But this guy, oh man. Yeah, he got burned. He had problems with his CPU and his video card too. I think he RMA'd his CPU about 3 or 4 times, and he borrowed one of my old video cards and he like jammed it in because he was that desperate to get his new system working. And oh man, this guy, I swear. At least he didn't break my video card, though. But yeah, he got burned big time, and I'm sure he ditched that case not long after graduation, ASAP, whatever, because you see, here's the problem. This guy had that machine that he built with 60mm fans. One of my roommates in college had a Dell with 120mm fans. This is at the beginning when 120 was becoming the new standard for case fans. So I was like, wow, that machine's really quiet. Oh yeah, 120mm. Same cubic feet per minute airflow with lower RPMs, so you get a low, relaxing hum instead of the whiny nonsense we dealt with in the days before all these temperature regulars. Actually, the Silver Bullet, I had a fan controller on that sucker because there was no fan speed control, so the thing would be like with its 80mm fans, and I did everything possible to cool that thing down. I installed a fan controller. I put in a machined aluminum funnel to put a larger fan on the CPU. Oh, it was a disaster. But at least I was able to like make a few modifications and mod a few things to try and get around the noise problem, but not this guy. And his machine ran hot. When he first built his machine, he used to go nuts about. He used to brag to me about how with his old water-cooled monstrosity of a computer that he could overclock his CPU a lot with the water cooling setup that he had. He was telling me with his new, supposedly his really awesome new computer, he was telling me about how he had to underclock the CPU so it wouldn't overheat. Yep, real disaster of a computer. And nope, you couldn't use it as a hairdryer. It was as loud as a hairdryer, sort of, with the 60mm fans and the whininess of it all, but you couldn't dry your hair with it. It just wasn't hot enough, even though the thing had heat issues. Yeah, moving right along. Question number 14. Why is the Dellasaurus' paint job so lousy? My mom has a computer that's that old, and it doesn't look that bad. Well, it's an old computer. It's an old computer. And it hails back to the bad old days when computers were usually beige. You notice nowadays a lot of computers, whether home built or bought from a store or something, a lot of them either black or they're two-tone black and gray, but not that beige thing. Well, of course, plastic, that bright plastic like that, could have issues with yellowing. If it would have issues with yellowing, like this, my Super Nintendo has this problem, and I've seen more than a few homebrew PCs have discoloration issues from the chemicals in the plastics. So Yeah, I guess, well, I actually went looking for cases on Newegg not too long ago, and I saw all these cases that were either black or two-tone, black and gray. So, yeah, it's because of discoloration, basically. Some are better than others. It really depends on the batch. It actually can come down to the batch of the plastic pieces that were manufactured for the cases and stuff. Same thing with Super Nintendos. Some Super Nintendos are all yellow, some are yellow on the top, some are yellow on the bottom, and some lucky folks out there have Super Nintendos that haven't yellowed at all in the past 20 years. So, lucky them. Anyways, it's a beat-up old computer. My dad just let it collect dust and stuff. He wasn't like wiping it down or anything like that to keep it dust-free and stuff like that. It's crap. It's a crappy computer, and it's got a crappy paint job to match. And some of it may be yellowing and discoloration from the plastic and stuff like that. It is old enough to have that happen. Question 15, are you a masochist since you torture yourself so much with that Dellasaurus? No, I'm a curious nerd who wants to test the limits of old hardware, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Let's get our mad scientist laugh on. Okay, so no, I'm not a masochist. I just like messing around with technology, and part of that is testing the limits of old hardware. Question number 16. Ever consider a stealth job search to end your job mess? I've done stealth job searches before. They've done nothing. During the warehouse fiasco, I went for a few IT positions, and the results were quite disappointing. I really got sick of all these interviews with all these hiring managers who are in charge of IT and security and stuff at some of the companies around here, and they might as well have their feet on the desk. They're that laid back. So then you get a guy like me with a ton of energy from zipping around warehouses so much. Doesn't really mesh too well with all these folks who want to just kick back and maybe mosey over to a server if it acts up or something like that. So yeah, stealth job search, yeah, it's definitely something that's on the table as far as I'm concerned, but it's often no better than a real job search when you're unemployed. So yeah, it's not that when people ask me about my situation with dysfunctionomy type stuff, it's not that I'm sitting around going, woe is me, getting material to gripe about on the internet. It really is pretty much me banging my head against the wall with most IT or even business type positions around here. So, no, I mean, I have considered a stealth job search, but I have yet to see the whole stealth job search thing actually work. Question 17. With so many people being long-term unemployed, how did you manage to find the jobs that you've managed to find? Entrepreneurial drive. That really sums it up. A lot of people don't think of entrepreneurial drive when they think about blue-collar employment or just getting something to keep a roof over your head, but I know a few things about my neck of the woods, and I know that the headaches that the local employment agencies put up with from... Here's the funny part. Despite all the crap going on with the employment situation in this country, there are still a lot of people out there who don't really want to work. And there are still knuckleheads who wander into the local warehouses around here through these temp agencies and wander off the job, sometimes after a single shift. I've seen that happen. There was one time at the warehouse fiasco, we had a new temp come in and didn't come back for a day two. Everybody was chuckling to the person that was supposed to train this person the following night. Hey, you scared the newbie off. But, yeah, I know that there are people around here who don't care about what they do for a living, and there's folks wandering in and out of jobs. Not only do I know that's going on, but I know that not only are there people getting jobs around here, they're getting them just like that. So that's why I pound the pavement with these employment agencies, because it's not so much about your skills or anything, but it's about what problems do you solve? What is the pain that the business you want to work for, what is the pain that you can take care of for a business? And I know full well that there's plenty of problems around here with turnover from these employment agencies, because there's all these folks who wander in and they're like, I want a job, and then they find out later on, then the staffer finds out later on that they don't really want to work. So I even went to one that was formally advertised in a local paper around here, that was conducted by one of the local staffing agencies, and the recruiter was chuckling about it as I walked in the door. He's like, yeah, this last guy, he wanted a job, but he doesn't want to work. Man, I wish I'd... So there are these agencies around here getting frustrated. So I know full well that hopefully if I get into the right one, that they'll actually appreciate someone who can actually break a sweat and actually wants to work and not just either do the bare minimum to not get fired or worse, wander off the job or something like that. But that's really it. Besides that, what I'm doing right now is actually a result of connections and so on and so forth, building up a reputation with folks in charge of businesses around here. It's kind of like my first real foray into the so-called hidden job market that people say exists, where if you get involved and you impress people and whatnot, they start calling you about stuff instead of you having to hunt for a job. So that's one of the things that's keeping me in this area too, is people know me around here. If I went to, say, Boston or Providence or a place that is known for having more jobs around, yeah, sure, there might be more things to apply for, but nobody's going to know me. And what's to say there aren't people in those areas that aren't in my position here, where they're just looking for a way to get through this mess, and they have then some people already know them, know they'll do a good job, and they can skip all the nonsense with having to hunt and recruit and things like that. And so that's really the thing. The big thing to do, though, is to learn a few things about entrepreneurialism and looking for opportunities. Yeah, sure, you may not be using it to start a small business or anything like that, but you'll definitely be showing that you don't just want to be a 9-to-5er who's just like, yeah, whatever, clock in, I'm going to barely move until it's the end of the shift and then collect a check and go home. Because this whole factory idea with employment is getting very, very long in the tooth. It never should have been, and I could go into a whole nother discussion on factory-style jobs where you punch in, punch out, stuff like that. This model of employment should have never been as big as it was with the baby boomers. But there were some things in history, particularly after World War II, that created the kind of boom and the conditions that are now millennials like myself as standards today, and that's just not the case. You have to be open-minded to the idea of other ways of having jobs besides just apply and then go punch somewhere and work 8 hours a day. There's a lot of other options available these days, and some options may actually be more suitable for some people than others. Granted, I don't think that just having a job to pay your bills should ever go away, but for people that want to be a little adventurous and try different things, they should have those options available too. Question number 18. Ever consider getting into Minecraft? No. I don't get the appeal of a game with 1995 graphics that most people use to like build stuff in. It's like, hey, here's my Minecraft recreation of Skyrim. I'll just play Skyrim, thank you very much. Here's my Minecraft recreation of World of Warcraft. I'll just play World of Warcraft. I might check it out at some point, but I don't really have much of a reason to really get into Minecraft right now because I'm so busy and with not getting around to all the other games I've got sitting around that unknown time sink like Minecraft, that was just foobar my gaming setup, my gaming these days even more. I'm behind enough on games. I don't need to be made even worse because of Minecraft. I might check it out at some point, but not in the near future. Question number 19. You never got around to your Dysfunctionomy podcast that you said you were going to make last year. Yeah, I know. Boo. Hoo. Hoo. Is Dysfunctionomy going to make a return? Yes, as part of the audio commentary series and as a regular topic. I may not be doing a podcast about it, but I've been planning on making a Dysfunctionomy series for quite some time. At some point when I get sick of complaining about YouTube or sounding off about the state of YouTube, I will probably make Dysfunctionomy a regular topic in the audio commentary series. So stay tuned and keep listening. And lastly, question number 20. What are your plans for 2014 with the whole Dailymotion thing and everything else? Well, here's the thing. I'm going to start off the year with 2 channels, one on YouTube, one on Dailymotion. I've already got the content. I'm going to split the content. YouTube, of course, is going to have the series that you see now, audio commentary, tech videos, and vlogs. And Dailymotion is going to have the new Classics series, where I bring over my YouTube videos, the best of my YouTube videos, and that's going to replace the retro reel. I will play some stuff, we'll go over Dailymotion, and I've also tossed around the idea of composing some music with my piano and keyboard music setup, stuff like that. Any original music that I compose, definitely Dailymotion with YouTube's current content ID mess right now. If YouTube continues going down the tubes, I may just go completely over to Dailymotion and turn my YouTube account into like a VCR account of sorts, just to subscribe and comment and things like that, but there are some folks that are leaving YouTube because of the mess that's going on right now, going to either Dailymotion or Vimeo, and Dailymotion is actually cutting some deals across the seas to try and compete better with YouTube and stuff like that. Well, not even across the seas, but even some deals here in America too. So I really think that if YouTube continues tripping over its own feet, we're probably looking at an online video reshuffling in the next 2 years between YouTube, Dailymotion, Vimeo, and these more specialized video sites like Twitch. So it'll be very interesting to see what this online, what the online video and even online everything like audio and blogging and stuff, what happens in the next year or two with some of these developments that are going on with sites like YouTube. And my friends, that's going to just about do it with our 20 questions here for this question and answer thing tonight. If you have any more, feel free to leave them. I'm not going to have any more formal Q&A invitation videos because the last one I did was a total disaster. So since I can do what I did here, what I'll probably end up doing is just not clumping together, but watching my inbox for notifications from people posting comments on here. When I see comments on videos in the forms of questions, I'll set them aside for Q&As and stuff like that. But yeah, I'd say 20 is a bit too much with how long this is going. Shoot, man, people are going to think the podcast is returned with how long this thing is. So I'll probably won't do 20 questions like this again because it's way too long. And even with the time that I've spent here, I haven't been able to really go into some of the detail on some of these things, like my views on the consoles that I would have liked to have gone into. But yeah, so I think this one's going to need a clickable program guide, and it's going to be like setting up the podcast and stuff like that. So thank you for listening, everybody. Keep those questions coming, even though I'm not going to have formal Q&A invitation videos anymore. And we'll just see what 2014 brings. Thank you for listening, everybody. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.